So, what has AI ever done for us? We are here with Gabi and Zsolt to dig deeper into this topic. We should start with a round of introductions, I guess. Would you mind starting, Gabi?
I'm Gabi Mátyás-Kollár with leadership experience in financial services firms on global scale for more than 15 years, and I'm an innovation enthusiast as well. So that's why I'm interested in talking about AI.
I'm Zsolt Vaszary. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Robotic Retail, which is an AI startup. Just very shortly, what we do is compared to the large language models and generative AI, we don't do any of that. We do applied AI, which means we try to identify objects inside the cabinet and how these objects move, come and go, and it's used in retail. So we don't have large data sets, we have sensor data, and we basically determine what's moving from the inventory in and the inventory out. So it's a very precise use of AI, but it is, to my best knowledge, an AI, but we can debate that later if it's AI or not. Large language models, there is an infinite number of uses, data that you can put in. In our case, there's very little data that's coming in, and we try to analyze it and make decisions based on that. So while LLMs might be like a Swiss Army knife that you can use for a lot of things, it's more like a scalpel. So you do only one thing, but you try to do that as precisely as possible. So in our case, it doesn't hallucinate.
Okay, that's good.
Please also introduce yourself. Thank you for being here today.
So I'm Péter Kovács. I co-founded 3 brands companies over the last decade or so. One of them, ICQ, which is an international recruitment agency. Budapest Startup Safari, which still is now without me, one of the most important startup conferences in Hungary. And the third one called the Global Startup Awards, which is the world's largest startup competition practically.
Wow.
And you pretend you never heard that, right?
Doing my best.
and now I'm actually, I haven't been active in these companies for a few years, and now I started building a new brand called NetworkSmith, which is practically helping companies getting into other markets, better understanding other markets, to get into the startup ecosystems of other markets. And we also help bigger companies connect smaller companies, and practically globally connecting the dots in different forms and shapes between the startup ecosystem actors.
And do you use AI for that?
Well, I use AI for my everyday work, to support my work. I would say AI and automation. I'm trying to automate as much as possible, which is, I have some use cases from that, what works well and what doesn't. But yeah, I'm a fan of, on an average person's level, to discover these new solutions coming up each day, and to integrate them into my workflows and my everyday life practically.
So what works and what does not? Because that's always very interesting. So I guess people start with some experimentation on, let's see whether it works with AI or not. So what are your findings?
Well, mostly with LLM, not with your kind of AI. Just like anyone else, I also studied with ChatGPT, and I'm a huge fan of using ChatGPT. But I realized that ChatGPT for me is mostly useful when I don't expect ChatGPT to do things instead of me, but rather support me doing things. So the general workflow I find useful is that human ChatGPT, and human. Mm-hmm. And that's when you can hand out something of your hand. So for instance, if I want to craft a good email, I first write it with my own words and my own way of thinking. Then sometimes, not always, I ask ChatGPT to revise it practically. I don't always find it perfect, mostly I don't, but it sometimes gives me a better structure, for example, for the email or something like that, or maybe a few expressions I was not thinking about using, especially in English. And then I consider using those things, but then I revise what ChatGPT revised for me. That's the kind of the basic functionality. But I also use a lot of other services. Like now, most digital products implemented AI, talking about Canva or talking about I don't know, anything practically. I can actually cheat from my screen, and I can just check what are the most used applications that I have. Yeah, for instance, one of the recent findings that I find super useful. I hate Viber, I must admit, but I'm kind of forced to use it because some people use Viber, and Viber just recently, like a few weeks ago, rolled out a very, very useful function when you're part of a big kind of group and you don't follow the group for a few weeks or so, and then, you know, tons of messages, and there's one button that you click and summarizes everything that has happened in the group over the last period of time. I find it super useful.
For reading everything.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Especially if, you know, a lot of people are in the group and stuff like that. Those are the things that pop up my mind right now, but I probably come up with some other ideas, but now it's your turn.
And
Well,
can I highlight something?
yeah.
I remember that you're part of or involved in Mensa, and maybe I can give a very quick provocative idea. There was a small exercise I did the other day, and I tried, just for the fun of it, to take an IQ test with ChatGPT, just screenshotting the questions, putting into the ChatGPT, and then feeding it back into the test. And it came out as 72. Not very intelligent. What do we think? I know that it's very different, but maybe you know a lot more than me about these things. And if you say I hijacked your ideas, then we can talk about this later as well.
Well, actually, when you are testing for IQ, that is relevant for a certain population and for a certain age group. So that already says that you cannot really assess the IQ of ChatGPT, because what is the age of it and what is the nationality of ChatGPT? But that might be easier. But still, it is a test for human abilities, a very well-defined set of human abilities. But actually, ChatGPT should be able to answer those questions, because it's like logical sets of what is coming after a certain pattern, and it is about recognizing those patterns. So 72 is a bit surprising, because for a human, that's already a little bit limited abilities, because the average is 100. So it's interesting, but as AI learns more and more, because as you ask questions, you are training AI, and AI uses all sorts of resources on the internet. So with each use, it becomes better and better, and you can see it already. If you compare with a few years ago, what was the answer to a question and how much it developed ever since. So that's really interesting. So if we are making a comparison between human abilities and the AI's ability, that's, I think, a really interesting question, because first of all, Turing's original idea about assessing AI, artificial intelligence, was how much it can make the human think. It is very similar to human thinking. So does it sound like a human thinking? So that was the original question. So AI ever since have developed a lot, and now you can really start conversations, and of course it can still hallucinate or come to conclusions that are not right. But yeah, that's why you have to use AI wisely.
So going back to the original title of our conversation today, and going back to referring to the film classic, what has AI given you?
To me, I use it similarly to Patty. So whenever I need to access a large amount of data, and if I look for something like I need a good article on what happened in fintech the past year and what were the biggest findings recently, then I look for that. For example, Perplexity is a great tool for that. Because it checks the background of the data as well and gives you the sources very precisely. Because if you just ask a question, you always have to ask yourself if you trust the answer.
Yeah, I think it's also, what to use ChatGPT for the best. To me, it's not like doing a research instead of me. Perplexity or other tools are much better for that. But to me, more like I feed ChatGPT with the input that I want ChatGPT to do something about, and then I prompt it well, and then the results could be really good. But I'm not sure if you experienced it recently. I started feeling that, especially when it comes to larger amount of data, that like a year ago, it could handle much bigger amount of data. And these days, it starts actually hallucinating and missing out things and simply just ignoring my requests when it comes to like long pages of let's say, text. And I think one of the reasons is the energy consumption part of the whole process, that they try to save the energy, and a lot of I just heard, like I was reading it in news the other day that the using AI as such significantly contributes now to energy consumption.
Like Bitcoin before.
Yes.
Or any other types of coins and cryptocurrencies.
You have to start cutting it into parts in order to expect good results. Even if you feed the input you expect, for instance, ChatGPT to work with.
Or I would put it in a way that it's good to find the right tool for your question. So ChatGPT is basically a chat robot. So you ask questions and it gives back answers. And usually it is like short questions and not very long answers. So if you are dealing with a large data set, then...
Which tool would you suggest?
Actually, there are AI tools for finding the right tools,
yes.
And that would
Perplexity is one of them.
Perplexity is one of them, but there are other ones too. So you can look for which is the best tool for that, and it tests you for 10, 12 different tools and gives back the first part of the answer, and you can decide like which one you would like to go on with.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that the large language model generative AI is the most exciting use of AI, or not necessarily? Because it might be the most fun and might be the most widespread use of AI, but there are things that there are solutions that like do a lot of good. Like there was AlphaFold, for example, that really revolutionized. I'm doing applied because I'm an applied AI guy. AlphaFold really revolutionized how 3D models of proteins can be modeled much quicker, and that had a huge impact on healthcare. So compare that with kids being able to solve their homework or making a post, or I'm not saying it's not cool, it's not fun, and I'm sure it's going to be evolving, but there are things that are doing more good for society. So going back to the original question, what is it giving us? If it's giving us health, then giving us a good article to post on LinkedIn,
or giving us time.
Yeah, I don't think it's such an easy comparison, because if you add those up and kids are more happy and can learn easier, then it could be a great achievement. I think the main difference is that the large language models basically democratized AI so that everyone can ask questions and they did not have to program it, they did not have to know the whole background and set up models and test it and evaluate it and have the right source for data, but you can just ask questions, and basically that really helps a lot of people in daily tasks as well, but also when it comes to the entrepreneurship, the entry level is much lower because people can now say that I'm looking for an AI tool to do the billing instead of me, and I don't need to ask that many people to contribute to my company, and can come up with solutions quite easily. So now 10-year-old kids are having shops on internet and online. They are selling things and exchanging ideas. So I think that is the beginning of something, and it would be great if people would be experimenting with how that could help me. I have a very good example because as a mother of 2 kids, so they come back with their homework, and I was like, I would need an hour to ask the German words and vocabulary for them. So I made a quick prompt, like these are the word sets, and I want my kids to learn those and ask questions with 3 options to answer them, wait for the answers, give back the recommendation on whether it needs to be improved or is it good, and give back some nice compliments if they are doing well. And that was like quite fun because prompting this was like 5 minutes maximum, and the kids were really happily learning for 1 hour, and that saved me that hour.
That's great. I'll steal that idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just two use cases came up my mind. One of them that I really started be depending on, it's actually the note taker thing. There are several note taker services out there, but the one that I use, I chose because it speaks perfectly also small local languages, supports them as well. And
like our Hungarian language, which is basically a code language spoken by 10 million people.
It's the Navajo of Europe.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you also experience that because I set it up in a way that everyone who participates a conversation will receive the summary. But it's not just the summary part I use it for. I mean, the summary part, but not just for online calls. So, for instance, the other day, I had an in-person conversation with someone about a collaboration, and I asked the permission to record the conversation. I recorded it, and I very simply uploaded the conversation, the voice file practically, into this service. And in just 2 minutes, I didn't need specifically the summary part, but more like the transcript part. And then just with one click, I could copy and then paste it into ChatGPT, and I could easily turn it into the agreement. And you could even automate it further. So I did manually those steps, but it saved me so much time. Mm-hmm. And
you didn't have to edit the end? No. It was perfect?
No. I prompted it well with several steps. You know, as I described earlier, I use this human, AI, human. So those are the steps I went through. So I had to invest time, but I also I uploaded also the kind of the contractual form I wanted to use as an example. And then I just, said, okay, that part should be replaced with this part, So I did the prompting well, but I still saved hours. Even if I invested, let's say, like half an hour of my time doing that properly. But I didn't need even half an hour, actually. Maybe like 15, 20 minutes.
Cool. Can I suggest that we talk about something that was a time, it was probably about 2 years ago, when it really sounded like AI is going to do the fun stuff, like art and videos and pictures and whatever,
it's still happening.
Writing poems. It is happening today. And for a moment, it felt like, because before everyone was saying, oh, AI is going to revolutionize how you work, and it's going to do the crap jobs for people so people can do better jobs. But it sounded like it's going to take creativity away from us. It's going to take, for example, I mean, we're sitting here thankful for Adamski Positive to provide us this beautiful location. It's an advertising agency. We don't want AI to replace advertising agencies either. And it sounded like, okay, and then humans can go back to the Amazon boxing facility and pack boxes and whatever. It kind of sounds like it's not going to be that way, but it was really scary for a moment. And I was wondering what you guys think about it. Like, it felt like that then. It feels like that a little bit today. And how is it going to end up? Is it whose job is it going to take? And I hope it's not going to be the fun ones.
The story that came to my mind actually, the other day I was driving to Vienna with a good friend of mine called Peti Santo. You might have heard of the guy before.
Oh yeah.
And I told him about an AI that he hadn't heard about it before, called Suno AI, which actually you can prompt it to create music for you. And while driving, I was driving, and he just prompted it well, and he created actually kind of like a song for the trip, that specific trip. But the point I'm bringing up, that I also showed this application to my son, who loves playing the guitar, and he fell in love immediately also with GarageBand, on Apple, and he asked me if I could buy him like a pro subscription for this, and I told him that okay, I can buy it for you, but I don't want you to stop playing the guitar because you just play around with that. And he said, no, that's not the case. He wants to create all the background music using these tools, the GarageBand and Suno, so he can actually play the guitar on that kind of music.
Great.
And he became so good at prompting it that now he can create crazy stuff. Of course, they sometimes, play around with his friends, making fun things with that as well. But I think it's a good example that it's not really going against creativity. It's more like supporting his experience, making music. And even alone at home, he can do a lot of things. I remember when I was at his age, I had two tape cassette, kind of, how do you call them? These...
Like a boombox or...
Yeah, Eastern European version.
Cassette recorder.
Yeah, something like that. And I was using them both. First, I recorded the bass, and then I recorded the drums that I was doing with my not too pro gadgets.
And accidentally over.
And then I was playing the guitar on those things when I push the play buttons, and now it's just way much better. It's really like a professional level of the same thing. But so I think that's also creativity, and yeah, music creation. It's in a way scary how great music actually Suno can, for example, create. But at the same time, just to prompt it well, you have to have some musical knowledge, and you have to use the right words. Similar to, what's this name of this new service of OpenAI, which is about the movie creation?
Sora?
Sora. So we also tried Sora, and we failed so badly. We couldn't prompt it well. I mean, the result was just terrible. So you have to have some kind of knowledge in order to prompt these things well.
Experimentation, because those are also developing by the data which were already fed on to this. So yeah, it's a lot of experimentation. But actually, if we go back to other technical advances that changed the daily world, like before computers were that much part of everyday work, there were no jobs which were related to using the computational background and coding and so on. So it has changed a lot how we work, and this is happening again, so in a different level, and you are going to see jobs which doesn't exist now. So teenager kids now, you cannot really think of what the jobs they would do later on. So it is not clear yet. So we have to be in peace with this higher level of adaptability which is needed from everyone. And of course, it also creates jobs. So now you can see a lot of jobs with Gen AI prompter or AI expert, or how you can use those AI tools. And it is moving jobs towards other skill sets. Of course, some skill sets are not needed in that scale anymore. And some systems are using the human intervention as well. Some because they are better this way, like Patty's example with the co-creation, and other tools are even required. So if you are using high-risk AI tools, by the EU regulation, it is also required to have the human oversight on these tools. So things are changing, and you are going to have experts who are overseeing those AI tools. And maybe the question is, how much is it asynchronous? Because definitely it is. So administrators' work will be less needed, and the creation of the new jobs might not be at the same time. So maybe it's one step away.
By the way, you mentioned the word regulation.
Yeah.
We always hear that Europe is losing the game because of the over-regulated environment, and not just related to AI, but everything else. How do you see that?
Would you want to lose your data instead?
That's the point, exactly.
Yeah. I think you have to be aware of what data AI tools are using. You have to be aware if it's an AI tool you are using. So I think it's also important to label it well. And it is key that you are safe with that AI. And you have to be knowledgeable about what you do, how you do that. So the other side is the AI literacy, which is also important. You have to be careful, like with banking. So anyone could call you that, Peter, your account was attacked, and
it happened a few times, yes,
Yeah.
that someone called me. Yeah.
if you know like what it's about and what to do about it, I think it's better to have some safeguards.
Definitely.
But to be honest, I had a few thoughts about this the other day, and of course, we can imagine that OpenAI with ChatGPT is going to abide by the European regulations, which may not be true for example, DeepSeek. And I was thinking, would I feel comfortable about using DeepSeek if it's cheaper, better, whatever, for the things that I'm doing? And yeah, stuff that I was doing, like the typical stuff like Patty also mentioned. But if I would be using it for, I don't know, analyzing the finances of the company,
Or your own spending habits.
or my own spending, or loading my company's invoices and asking it to, I don't know, summarize and say, okay, how much did I spend on this and this and this and this? Then I probably wouldn't. And that's an interesting question. But who knows? Maybe it will be helping democracy a little bit as well. Because if a lot of people have access to all the information in the world, I'm naive in that sense a little bit, but that's what we thought when internet came around, that everybody's going to be so intelligent because we can fact check everything very quickly.
And what happened?
And what happened? We are like sprinting towards the movie Idiocracy, which is another classic, which should be happening 500 years from, more than 500 years from now. We're definitely halfway there. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it's
theoretically, the example you gave is a bit tricky, because theoretically all the data that you collect from company invoices should be public anyway, right?
The data, no.
I mean, who you're buying and how much you're buying.
No, I mean, public data is like your yearly reports, which in some countries it is. In Hungary, it is public data, but not down to the invoice level, not the details. And like, for example, you might find out how much a company is spending on operation, but you don't find out how much this company is paying for the services of the advertising agency that it's working for, because then it can lead to getting industrial espionage type of data, which I don't want to share with anybody.
Yeah,
and I don't have to say the Chinese government. I don't want to share it with anybody, unless I'm really, really certain that it's not going to be used.
But similar to what happened with Google or Facebook or Meta, whatever, then people ended up just providing everything to these companies, even though everyone was warned millions of times about the risk involved. Still, people just don't care.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I think this is the case with everything. For example, medicine, it can heal or kill people, different depending on the dose, depending on who needs to use that or who doesn't. So I think like at least the basic careful approach is really, really important.
Yeah.
But I think the more you use AI today, the more you understand that it's still a little bit like a toddler. That's what it feels to me.
Absolutely.
It's like a toddler. I can give you guys, maybe we can have a little bit of fun. I think the funniest thing that happened to AI was when they had this brand new AI tool to analyze the movement of the soccer ball in a soccer game in the field. And what happened, and they didn't think of this, there was an umpire, a referee, who happened to have white skin, and he was totally bald. So the AI had mistaken his head for the ball. So it was tracking the referee's head all around the field, and I don't know if it was like the ball not at all or whatever, or maybe it thought it had two balls on the field or whatever. But
and there is no goal.
Equally, it's
the movement of the ball was against the physical rules. It was impossible.
And it never dropped.
So there's really, really funny stuff where I also had situations where it started hallucinating and it was using curse words, and it was like, especially in like smaller languages or not languages that it wasn't really trained on, like our own Hungarian. And it was like, oh my God, it really felt like one of those user manuals that you get with Asian goods. That
when you order something from Temu, especially.
Yeah, exactly, or Shine or whatever. Yeah. Do you guys? What did you guys think was the funniest thing that? For me, this was definitely the funniest. What was the funniest thing that you have seen AI creating?
Do you have anything on the top of your head?
Yes, I think when you are trying to create picture, any kind of image type of item, which, for example, if you write an article and you need like a very good cover picture for that. So prompting those can be really challenging. So when I first write like, this should be in my color scheme, because I like using the similar schemes for the articles so that they look very well and they look similar to the previous one. So then I ask like, use these colors, this is the topic, and I want to illustrate like this and that. And first it comes back with something like, not there yet. But when I give further instructions, it doesn't usually become better, but first it goes really sideways. And then it forgets about the color scheme. You have to go back like, please still use the color scheme. Then it forgets about it again. So it's like when you talk to a kid sometimes that, okay, please remember that I asked them about this.
Like a toddler.
And, yes, and very, very politely it says that, sorry for doing that. So that can be really fun.
Actually, with ChatGPT, it's so funny that that when you expect it doesn't remember, but when you don't, it still remembers even things you don't want it to remember. Like, for instance, before I came up with this brand, Network Smith, I had another brand in my mind. And first I started prompting for different purposes ChatGPT using that brand. And then I changed my mind and I came up months ago, and I even explicitly explained ChatGPT, I don't want to use that anymore. This is what I use. And sometimes...
Forget about it.
Sometimes let's say I prompt it to write me something, and then it kind of signs it with that name, and like I explained it millions of times,
Yeah, like kids,
Yes.
kids. Absolutely.
So
And it's also interesting to try examples like if you tell DALL-E to give you a picture with a cat without ears, for example. It doesn't really have those photos. So it would look for different photos and all the cats have ears. So you have to try and magical things would happen until it really understands that just remove those ears.
Yeah.
A friend of mine posted something the other day. If he's watching this, then I'm sorry, Lottie.
Now everyone knows it's Lottie.
It's Lottie. It's
There are
one of the.
lots of
A few thousand. Yeah.
He's one of the many Lotties that I know, and he posted that there was a new functionality in the AI he was using, and it was so amazing. He could actually place himself in adverts and pictures and things like that, and then he posted the pictures, and the pictures were more like drawings, and they did look a little bit like him, but like a super idolized 20 years younger model version of him. And I told him, listen, let's say, I think the reason you really like this is because it really puts you into the, into the right light. That I didn't want to say that it doesn't look like you. I just like it makes you look better.
It's the idea.
But for example, there was one of the pictures. He was in a car commercial, and he was like in the car. But if you looked at it, you could see that half of his body just went through the windshield. So I was like, you can call it great, but half of your body is through the windshield. So
Must have been a terrible accident.
yeah, true. So there are a lot of things. I don't know how much the current use of AI, especially in certain geographical areas, should be more or less controlled. Maybe this is going back to what you said.
You have the most corporate experience among the three of us.
Yes, absolutely.
I think controls are absolutely important. For example, from the perspective of a company, it is really important. So that's why companies are doing lots of trainings on that, so that the company data is used only within the company's data sets, and it doesn't go outside of the company. So that's why there are trainings that don't use the general ChatGPT with the company data, but use the company applications for that. So that's really crucial, because otherwise market data is lost, your own knowledge is lost. So it really has to be very controlled and very well educated.
I have a question to you about it. So we've known each other for a while. You have been into the innovation, driving innovation within big companies in the past. And one of the key findings, we never talked about it explicitly like that, but I'm pretty sure you saw it the same way, that innovation up until a certain point can grow faster outside of a corporate than inside of a corporate. Don't you think that now the lack of access to such tools, for a good reason, for security reason, compliance reason, whatnot, even slows corporate innovation more compared to startups out there, because they have access, they can play around with these tools and stuff like that?
I think generally startups are quicker to do things in more niche markets, and large companies are more established, and they want to safeguard what they have achieved so far. So they cannot really go that fast, but we shouldn't underestimate how much they experiment with which tools, how they use it, what are the best use cases, and they constantly are looking for the best use cases and newer things. So innovation is everywhere. So it gives the competitive edge to the companies.
Maybe I should better explain it. So of course, when I meant what I said, that startups can innovate faster to a certain point, I meant that startups and corporates, they look for each other, because when startups reach a kind of ceiling or a certain level of development, then they really need the structure, the knowledge, the market access of the large companies. That gives, at least that's what I see, the fundamental for startup and corporate collaborations, even acquisitions.
Yeah.
So it's only true up until a certain point that they can grow faster. But don't you think that thanks to AI and especially that startups can use AI that corporates can't because of the reasons we talked about, the speed will be even much faster on the startup side than it was before compared to the corporate innovation?
I think they would move in parallel. So how they worked beforehand, so using the ecosystem and mergers when the startups are more matured and large companies need that type of technology. So those still happen, and I don't think that would be limited. So maybe just things are happening much faster.
But it's not even the limitation. Maybe I really can't express myself well. It's just, is it gonna give
It feels like we are doing the prompting.
Yes, exactly. So don't you think that it's gonna even boost the growth of startup development? Let's say, will it not make it even faster for startups compared to corporates, the early stage level?
Yeah, it's like comparing the different speed, but startups are going to be much faster, but large corporations as well.
Okay.
So I think they move in parallel.
Okay.
Gabi, we were talking about one topic when we were thinking about what to talk about today, and going back to the corporate world, there was one other thing that we pinpointed, and that's AI washing, similar to greenwashing. A lot of companies pretend to be green by buying quota on the stock exchange of companies that actually save on their footprint, economical footprint. What do you think about AI washing? I have an example that I think is AI washing, and that has to do a little bit with what we are doing at our company. I remember when Amazon started with Amazon Go. Basically, at the beginning, only on camera vision. So it was all built on camera vision first, and then they wanted to add QR codes, and they experiment. If I remember correctly, maybe I'm also hallucinating. So if it's okay for the AI to hallucinate, then it's okay to hallucinate as well. But then they started combining it also with the load cell data, so the weight of the products and things like that. And then last year, we started reading about this technology actually being removed from the larger stores because they had like a fleet of 1,000 to 3,000 people in Asia who actually had to check, in some cases at the beginning, even 70% of the pictures, later on only 30-40% of the pictures, manually to determine what people have been picking up in the cashierless stores. For me, and this is just my opinion, so if Amazon sues me, that's going to be great PR for me. So go ahead. But still, I feel that when you're not transparent about it, if they would have been transparent about it, that hey, we use humans for training the AI, fine. Hey, for example, there's one Hungarian company.
Human control, because some AI applications, the high risk applications, would require human control, exactly not to do it in a way that it goes sideways. So companies have to be transparent with what is the amount of AI use, what they use it for, and of course at the first times it could go sideways, but that's also something they can learn from. And AI is so popular now, and just the word AI, if you say that, oh, my application is using AI, can make customers be more interested. Like if you
or investors value your company at a higher level.
They don't even look at your pitch deck. That's what I heard. Well, that's an information from last November. I heard from a really literally a Silicon Valley based investor that if AI is not there, they wouldn't even have a look. But then I asked the question, how much is bullshit? And he said, well, I think like 70% is bullshit. That's what he said.
It's like the dot-com bubble. And that time it was like, if you don't have a website, then it's not valid. So
that was what they called in Silicon Valley the flavor of the month, or sometimes the flavor of the whatever part of the year. It seems like AI is now the flavor of the, I mean, not the decade yet.
But the recent few years.
But what it looks like it's the recent few years, but it feels like it's probably going to be the flavor of the decade, because everyone wants to say, oh, I'm AI, and I'm...
And a blockchain is not cool anymore as it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
And NFTs.
Even less. I don't necessarily feel sorry for them.
No,
sorry,
good
just
riddance.
my personal
Good riddance
opinion,
for sure. Good
yeah.
riddance in case of NFTs. But so, what do you think? You have a very strong corporate background, and if you don't want to tell me that you just don't want to take sides on this. But I felt in case of Amazon that it wasn't transparent and it was a bit of AI washing. And I had experience because I'm also kind of like a drone enthusiast. And I remember I was running a drone site, which I later sold. I sold it back in 2016. So I was looking at this between 2013, 14, something like that. And all the news everywhere was full of Amazon starting drone delivery tomorrow. And there were pictures.
Or even the drone taxis, so that they would carry people to one
Maybe it
spot to
wasn't
another.
Amazon, and actually drone
different,
taxi
but-
Waymo, it
yeah.
exists. So at least it actually materialized. But I remember for years and years and years there were article after article from Amazon, and they showed guys trying with quadcopters and whatever. So it really looked real. But if you hear it like 100 times, you start thinking, okay, but when was the first drone delivery? And it turns out that a lot of other companies have done it already, and Amazon never did. So it feels like it was drone washing at the time, because drone was the big thing to talk about at that time. And of course, it might be smart marketing, and it's definitely not illegal. But is it ethical? Or I don't know. Do you think that, for example, this specific instance could have been AI washing a little bit?
I think the EU regulation is going to be better in that way, so that you have to declare what you use the AI for. And there is quite a large pressure on the large companies to come up with new solutions. And of course, you have to be careful, like how you market it and what is the labor you put on it, and how much is it true. So as greenwashing could be a reality, AI washing could be a reality. So clear communication is, I think it's clear.
And then
key.
I saw a totally opposite example, which is a company I also know and is actually coming from Hungary. What they did is the total opposite. They said, okay, we are going to create unattended stores, and they will be remote monitored, and people will be monitoring them. And there will be a little bit of, I think there's also, some intelligence used to highlight suspicious activity and things like that. So they don't have to have such a huge workforce. It's a company called Laurel. I really like what they're doing, because it was really, really open. And it's going to be obvious in the location that you're being monitored. And it's not saying it's AI, it's saying it's a remote monitored cashierless store, and there are cameras, and just behave like you behave in any of the supermarkets that you use today. Buy your stuff, scan everything, go, and it's totally transparent, totally open. It's not pretending to be something else. And I admire that. And of course, at the end of the day, what the other aspect of the Amazon situation is that we all know that AWS is owned by Amazon. Everything is happening in the cloud. You have to have 150 cameras per store, whatever. I'm just, coming up with numbers. So it's a great experimental thing, and let's see what technology can do. But at the end of the day, it's not something that a regular entrepreneur could do.
Yeah, but it's also
tomorrow here
It's also pressure. It's also pressure. As I mentioned, many investors out there now wouldn't even look at pitch decks of startups that don't provide some AI as part of their thing. So if they don't put AI there, they risk, that
there are such a wide range of potential applications. So I think if you don't use any AI, it would mean that you are giving up efficiency gains because there are such a lot of tools. So to a certain extent, I think that's a good thought, but it can be also exaggerated just buying something because it says it's AI backed, or not buying something because it's
Okay,
it's
but
more
what is AI and what is not? Where is the distinction?
That's a good point.
Maybe in your world, which is not the typical LLM world as you described.
Yeah, I mean, in our world, it's totally different because it's applied AI. So what we do is we gather data from different sources. It's a location of a product, it's the weight of a product, and the camera image and what the camera sees. And the reason I think is AI, and this can be debated, is because it actually makes decisions based on that data. So what it does is that it checks what is the probability or what is the level of confidence based on weight, based on location, based on camera data, and it uses those inputs in order to decide and make a decision at the end of the day. Okay, it was this product because it was coming from here, because it weighs that much, and because I was seeing something happening in front
By
of it.
the way, when you buy an AI domain, do you need to prove?
No, we haven't.
Anything.
Nobody asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the website domain itself will not give any proof.
Yeah, but I think AI, the domain AI, probably has been given to, or I don't know, but maybe it was given to like Antigua and whatever, and so it just happened to be AI, or is it really, was it really created for AI company? I'm not even sure.
Because I also know a
Because
kind
I
of,
remember FM, for example, that a lot of radio stations used. That was also it was an effective island or country or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they were just really lucky with the FM, and they sold a bunch of FM domains. So I don't know but we have 2 AI domains and nobody asked.
I
Okay.
would go back to the topic of what's AI and what's not. So the original definition was that AI is something which is mimicking the human capabilities. So in that sense, a lot of things could be AI, but now we refer to that with the computational abilities and the use of huge data sets. But that can be also a smaller data set. But there has to be an element which is not just an if-then type of relationship, but something which AI comes up with as a decision and uses that.
Autonomous decision making based on data that can be trained, that actually trains itself. For us, it's easy
itself.
because, for example, ChatGPT cannot use your data in real time to train itself. We can use our own data real time to train our algorithms. Especially in our case, the customers have a chance to correct. So if there's something, there's a mismatch, they buy this product or they have this product in their hands, and the cabinet is showing that it's something else. They just scan the barcode and correct it. And it's very useful for us, for the system to learn. Oh, I made a mistake there. What did just happen? Okay, next time it happens, I will know that it's going to be that Coke instead of what I thought it was. So I think when autonomously decisions are being made similar to a human, so not just if, not zeros and ones, if then kind of, because that's not intelligence, then it can be used or it can be labeled AI. And then I think it will be useful. I really do want to highlight that there's a lot more to AI than just ChatGPT. Now it's obviously the most widely used, most exciting, the easiest for people to understand and try and create something, because you can prompt it and say, make me a funny bunny that doesn't have ears, like you said, or whatever, and then post it and be happy, or my daughter doing homework and things like that. So that's obviously an easier use case or a more friendly use case, more common for people to do. But then let's not forget that it probably has a chance to change our lives in healthcare. For example, I think we see today a lot of problems with air traffic control. being on a huge decline. In some cases, they say for political reasons because they fired a bunch of people because they thought that they were not useful. But even here in Europe, it didn't happen, and there's a shortage of air traffic controllers, and it can really help in that situation for us to be more safe in traffic, and that traffic doesn't necessarily have to be in the air. I imagine in the future when the cars actually do know about each other, because today I think even Waymo today, the way it works is that it just works on the data that it's gathering from its surroundings. But in the future, each car can be connected to another one, and they can be part of a neural network. And instead of seeing the car that it's coming from the right, if you know that the car is behind that building,
you cannot physically crash into the other.
So it can advance our safety. It can advance a lot of bad things as well, because maybe it could be used in warfare, which inevitably there's not going to be whatever regulations you come up with. Countries that want to use it for warfare are not going to care. But at the same time, there is the knife. The knife can be used to make a nice dinner for your family or to kill somebody. At the end of the day, 100% security will not be able to be achieved because we're humans, and we use our tools for things that sometimes are kind of sinister.
And just to focus on more positive things, when do you think the first one-man unicorn will come to life, and how?
I think we are very close to that. So when 10-year-old kids can set up their online shops, I think we are close to that. So
I think they already claimed that the Chinese guy who created DeepSeek was like a single guy creating something, and if you look at the valuation,
or that could be also close to AI washing to say that.
Yes,
probably, but that's no. But I mean, I'm saying they're claiming something.
Yeah.
And if that would be true, then it means that the single person unicorn is already there. I don't think so. That sounds a little bit too good to be true, but
or maybe we'll see it after it happened, because you might not.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing about anything coming from China is that you cannot really look behind the curtain, right? Transparency is a different definition there. Yeah. But let's say in the Western world, when will we see the first unicorn built by just one human? That's the tough question.
I don't think it's very far. It's not going to be something that's going to be very physical. Like in our case, we have like an IoT solution, which is hardware. So that's obviously very hard for one person to create something like that. But if you think SaaS, for example, someone creating, although also coding on the coding, I was talking to my colleagues, they know a lot more about AI. I just couldn't get them to come here and appear, but my co-founders teach at university. They know a lot about AI, and they told me that the coding capabilities of AI are like a toddler's, like a very junior code writing.
By now, but it evolves very quickly.
True, but at the moment,
But I mean, you also have to market, sell it, iterate a lot, stuff like that. You have to run the whole background operations and accounting and reporting and
client services.
Yeah,
and
so
billing. Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna happen in 5 to 10 years.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
That's just my opinion.
Okay,
I don't see that.
Meeting next time.
What's going to happen is the valuation is going to be past 1 billion, so it's going to be technically a unicorn, but it will not have the foundations of a unicorn. And then both of us will be right. I think that's going to happen. Yeah. Because if you just say, okay, because a one-man show, it's not going to be, because there's an interesting aspect to it. A unicorn usually becomes a unicorn when it's
about the valuation.
Yeah, but after an IPO. So the market.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, not necessarily, but if if like anybody can value any, maybe you buy one share at a very high price and then the total
That
valuation.
makes sense. Yeah.
I think the realistic valuation is if many people are willing to invest at a
Because
certain
before
price.
IPO, it's not even like how to say. There's not even a common ground to decide whether it's a unicorn or not, right? It's very hard. Valuation. There's always a big fight when it comes to valuation.
You cannot create an IPO for a company that's based on one person.
Yeah.
Because if that person dies, then the company is over.
Also,
investors would not.
Investors, when it comes to valuation, but it's now an old school way of saying that. But like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, being people on payroll added value, to value, it gave a boost to valuation when you had like senior software engineers on payroll that actually put valuation higher. That's also like a change in, like how we approach this whole question. But I can still hardly believe, I mean, my recent experience, I know it's only 2025 and not 2028, but yeah, I mean, sometimes the tasks that seems to be easy to set up sometimes take so much time. And you asked ChatGPT how to set up an automation. That was, I was trying to set up now for a few weeks and somehow it never worked. And then I found a guy who helped me with that. Just yesterday, he said half an hour. And we were sitting there for 3 hours while we figured out so many other problems that eventually that specific problem was solved. But now I see a bunch of other problems coming up that eventually enables this whole thing to really solve the real problem I have. So, and I'm just, it's a small thing and it still takes so much effort and time and thinking. And that's the reason why I'm not 100% sure that, I mean, it can really, really happen in the next 5 years.
Why don't we do another podcast about maybe this topic or some similar topics?
Because our time is up, actually.
Our time is up. We can say that the next episode of what has ... given us can be, for example, about this subject. And let's thank our viewers for taking the time. If they watch this until this time,
we can say precisely one by one. Your mother, your brother, and my mom, and so on.
People I mentioned, maybe whatever, my co-founders, yes. But anyway, thank you guys for taking the time, for showing up. Maybe we set the foundations of something, or maybe we'll never do anything like this anymore.
That's a topic we can endlessly continue.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it very much. I think it was a great idea. We talked a lot about what AI has given us and could potentially give us. But
the most interesting question is what is still coming up.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the future. Maybe future-seeking AI is going to be something that...
Yes, let's ask
Futurism created by AI. Thank you, guys. It was great.
Thank you.
Kész vagyunk!